Hello and welcome to Small Town Big Business. I'm your host, Allison Hassler, with my co-host,
Russell Williams.
And this podcast is about doing big business in small towns in the Midwest. And we are here today with Tim and Lindsay Stockhecke. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome.
Yeah, and you are from the next town over, not originally, but your business is called Deliciously Ordinary. And it is the most magnificent name. I would love for you to give an intro of what that is, and then we're going to kind of come back down to where the origin story was.
Okay, so Deliciously Ordinary, contrary to popular belief, has nothing to do with food. A lot of people kind of hear the delicious thing and they think that it's catering or a bakery, but it's not. So we do florals and decor for weddings and events, and specializing fresh florals, I should say. And the name started because many moons ago, it was not, it did not look at all like it does now. And we were just created it as an umbrella for anything creative we were working on. And at the time, it started as kind of revamping furniture, actually. And it was kind of these ordinary things. We were painting furniture and we were just doing kind of some different art stuff, and it all was seemingly ordinary, but we wanted it to just be really kind of delicious and amazing and extra special to us. And so that's where the name came from. And then over time, it evolved and grew into what it is now, which is, again, florals and decor for weddings and events.
And this was one of these homegrown businesses. We've seen so
Absolutely.
many of these pop up in the last several years. So how did that get started? When did it happen, and what were you doing at home?
So it, I guess, was born how many years ago?
Probably about 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Wow.
about 10 years ago. Again, just kind of in the evenings, we were doing creative things. Tim has a history in art, and I just love creative stuff. And so it was really just kind of our hobby at home. And it did not, we didn't have any idea of, didn't have goals, didn't have a business plan nor model. We had no background in business. We did not foresee it going, we didn't know.
We were working in the garage and in our garden and in the living room and paint everywhere and materials everywhere. And
True creative.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it was just all over the place and kind of wild and crazy. And then again, it just kind of evolved and grew over time. So at the time, we were working together. So I don't know if we kind of want to dig into like how that looked outside of kind of the creative stuff. So we were working together in the social work field, which is where we met. And so that really was, that's something that requires a creative outlet, I think, for kind of anybody that's been in that field. So that was kind of how was our creative outlet in that way. And we were in the social work field. And then, I don't know how much we want to like dig into kind of how that evolved, but
Yeah. So at what point did you think this might work?
well, okay, so we should say, so the program lost funding. So we had been working together for 5 years. We both, we loved our job. But then
We were doing substance abuse counseling with adolescents.
Which is great work.
Yep.
Yeah.
But definitely needed that kind of release at the end of the day. So that's kind of how it had initially started.
it was just our time to kind of unwind at the end of the day. And then when that program lost funding, I was still pregnant, right? Was I still pregnant? Or had just had Winnie?
We had Winnie, and then 2 weeks later lost our job.
So the program shut down when we had a newborn, and so I stayed home. He was able to, he found another job right away, and then that was kind of, there was a shift where, I was then home for the first time and kind of, and then I got another job, but like just kind of over the years from that program shutting down to then kind of, it was a catalyst for realizing like there's something to this. And so I started kind of dabbling more and kind of leaning more into that. And you continued on in the social work field. And there it kind of started to, evolve more into okay, this could be a business. This could be what I do, or ideally long-term what we do. And that's when it started to take shape. And so that was about 2 years where I ended up working at the Women's Center. And then just this like nagging feeling that, I started doing event styling. I started doing just kind of any creative thing that like came my way. I was just taking on, and you were really just supporting me in that. And then my older sister passed away, which was a really big catalyst for the realization that, we have one life and it's so precious, and you only get, tomorrow is not promised. And at that point, we decided, okay, we're going to go all in with this. And it still had no framework for what it was going to be. So it was kind of born of grief. And then it was, okay, now we're going to figure out how to do this, which is so kind of backwards and counterintuitive to what people think about business. But so it was kind of this like backwards approach for us. So it was, so that was kind of how it evolved and into, okay, it's going to be a business. I love this so much. How do we make this something real and something sustainable and something that, is going to grow and last and be what we want it to be? Yeah.
And how long had you been in the community at this point? Because you're not from Southern Illinois, the region we're in. You're from...
So I am from the Central Coast of California. Yeah. I'm from San Luis Obispo, and I moved here 12 years ago with an ex, and now I have joint custody. So roots are here now, but we met at work, and you're from?
I'm from Northern Illinois in the Quad Cities and Moline. And so, but as for many, SIU brought me here to do my grad work.
Yeah,
and,
Southern Illinois University.
Yep. And then did my internship work at the detention center. So then they carried me on to get a job there, and that's where we met.
Okay.
But I think a lot of it, once we started realizing that we needed to go in the path of making this a business, it was our yin and yang, because she will jump at something real quick, kind of the flashy balls, and then let's get in there, and and I have that more approach of I have to stop, think about it, and kind of how are we going to do this? How does that work? The financial sides and things like that, and so.
Yeah.
But that combination at that time, I think she was pushing that, and I was, kind of hesitant, but trying to figure out how are we going to get our footing in this. And as that time went along, we were able to then she kind of pushed me along to get to the point to where then the social work aspect for me was a fantastic thing. But as we've moved in through this COVID time, and like she said, we're seeing how things are being done differently now.
Well, in terms of being in the community also, I think being in the social work field, there's a lot of opportunity to meet a lot of people in the community. You go, there's a lot of luncheons, there's a lot of conferences, there's a lot of outreach. And so we both have been, even though we're not from here, we've been in the community in a pretty big way for the last 10 years, So I think that was a big part of getting to know, and not just Carterville, but all of Southern Illinois, because when you were he did adoption therapy. I mean, how many counties did you serve?
19
the 19 Southern counties. So really kind of being immersed in the entirety of Southern Illinois.
Yeah. So I'd like to go back to what you said, that you felt like you did everything backwards. And I think that's a true testament to that success in business, especially small business and entrepreneurship. It takes so many different forms.
Yes.
And Russ and I have had this really great opportunity to hear how the different, partnerships and businesses have formed, and there is not one that looks like the other, and that's just so perfect for entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So I love that origin story of that. You're like, you know what? I don't even know what it's going to be yet, but we're going to start to cultivate and kind of, massage this as a business itself. So I want to jump forward a little bit and give the preface that if somebody was looking online or was at a wedding, you have such a signature look to your florals that somebody could say, I know exactly who did these. It was D.O. It was Deliciously Ordinary, because you have such a signature brand to your florals and to your design and what you do, which I think is so beautiful.
Thank you.
And so I want to go back to where this shifted into the florals and events and what that looked like.
Yeah. So I started doing styling photo shoots, which was I think maybe that was 5 years ago. And I was just supplementing in decor. I was just kind of staging stuff. And then I was, and then when I was kind of trying to find the floral component, I was struggling a little bit to find exactly what my vision was. And so I decided to make them myself. And the first time I did that, it was just a kind of fun styled shoot with a friend that is a photographer. And I realized I can do this. I think I have a skill here that I should kind of explore more, because I didn't have any experience with fresh florals prior to that. And then the switch was flipped. I just realized I can do this. I love this. I'm going to. And I really, like he said, I'm very much kind of 0 to 10 pretty quick. I act first, think later, which sometimes works out, sometimes it doesn't, but I don't really foresee that changing anytime soon. And so I then pretty quickly started offering pop-up florals and was just making small arrangements and delivering them around the community. And
we got a cooler in the garage.
Yep, we bought a floral cooler. Yeah. I was working out of the garage, and there were flowers in the kitchen sink. And I remember, there was nights like kind of in tears of like, oh my gosh, I should be making dinner and there's flowers in the sink, and is this okay? And in hindsight, it's kind of this beautiful part of the story because of our journey, because everyone's got to start somewhere, and that is where we were. And it's being self-taught and kind of figuring it out along the way, I think, has allowed me to develop that signature, because I did so much trial and error of like, what works, what doesn't work, what looks good together. And I didn't have some of the constraints of what you quote unquote should or shouldn't do. Yeah. And some of the things I do with florals are in the industry kind of like against what you're supposed to do. But it seems to be, working out. Yeah. So that's kind of where that shift happened.
Well, you are self-taught, but you've got resources.
Yes.
In fact, you're a prime example of how well connected resources can help you.
Yes.
And so talk a little bit about that and how that works in building your business, because your online presence is fantastic. The social media, the photography, the stories that you guys tell. Mm-hmm. Tell us, how do you do that? Who do you connect with to do that?
Well, I think, he just mentioned the other day, he's like, without social media, we wouldn't, not that we couldn't do what we do, but it would look a lot different, and it'd be a lot more difficult, because the access to resources, via social media, like you said, it's really endless. I mean, you can connect with fellow entrepreneurs, fellow creatives. You can, we in the beginning, especially, I did a lot of like trade, we're going to collaborate on this, and it's going to be mutually beneficial, and we're going to, reach each other's audience, and we're going to and a lot of it was we just really want to just create together and connect and share that with the community. And so a lot of it's been very, very organic and not I don't want to say there's not been a strategy, but kind of not really been a strategy. Like, it's kind of just been like, if that feels right, if that sounds fun, if that seems to be working, we'll do more of that. And that didn't work, and we won't do that. And so it kind of has just been this listening to kind of the pull of the people that come into our lives that want to create together, and the access that is presented, opportunities that are presented or resources that kind of flow in. But they're really, with social media and just the internet in general, we've seen there's YouTube for tutorials. There are so many different like online workshops, and there's really, if you want to learn something, you can. I think, and of course there's different barriers dependent on, everybody's circumstances, but I booked, I don't even know if I should say this, but I booked my first full floral wedding before I had done
a wedding.
Yeah.
I haven't even really done anything, and it's
scary,
cats out of the bag.
That's where it starts.
But that, kind of not be, knowing that, however this is going to happen, it's going to happen, and we're going to figure it out, we're going to make it work, has, proven to be a good route to take.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. And I love how you, and my favorite quote is that you throw spaghetti on the wall and you see what sticks, and you're not afraid to make those mistakes and pivot when you need to pivot. And how many times do you think that you've pivoted over the last 5 to 10 years in this journey? You know, that's probably the business structure that you have is pivoting, and not being afraid to do that.
You almost have to, because with weddings and stuff, there's seasons of it.
Right.
So then
Like,
once we have downtime, what are we going to do now to really continue growing and having income coming in and just kind of
And we
pushing
saw the
deal.
ultimate down season, obviously, with, the shutdown. And so having to pivot through that, already having that kind of built into the structure of the business proved to be hugely beneficial through the last year and a half.
Right.
For us. And I struggled with, I always have thrown far more than spaghetti on the wall. I mean, there's like spaghetti and there's all other things. And I have always kind of felt a little bit like insecure about that, because we, typically you're taught like this is how things should go or should be done, or this is the order, or this is the way that it, again, kind of that should word. And because that isn't how I am, that's not how we want it to be. It wasn't until really probably this last year where it just kind of like really, really like embracing that. That's really what has proven to be a huge strength in this business, is that ability to just like try all and I know it kind of goes against everything, but just keeping it open for the future pivot and for just to be able to add something more in, or kind of trim something or expand, and with him coming on board, we have so many ideas for things that, just endless. There's literally no end to the ways in which we could kind of move it.
Yeah. And moving from a home business to a storefront in Carterville, Illinois.
Yeah.
Was that part of the process of getting away from your fears and moving forward?
That was a big one.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a big one.
But also probably another one of me a little bit
Well, we didn't really know what a storefront would look like for us. We still don't.
Yeah.
And figuring out, because when you think of florists, you think you can go in there and kind of pick what you want and say you need this and that. And really, as you'd mentioned, kind of the artistic quality behind her work is what people see and know. And that's what they want to come. They want something different, and they want. So it is a struggle for those that maybe do come in just off
more
the street.
traditional, if they want more
and they're
traditional.
looking for just kind of, But that is what Delicious Ordinary brings, and that's what people through that social media outlet are seeing, and they're like, I want this. And then the people that she's getting, the clients that are coming in, are allowing her that creative freedom to do so, which is fantastic, because otherwise then it becomes a little bit more
in the box
restrictive to what she's wanting to do.
And the space, I think when I first started looking, was probably a little hasty for you.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. But as you need these floral coolers, and you need these things to really be able to put out there what we're trying to do then. And so once we were able to get in there.
Well, and that happened so I started kind of looking just because I get the itch and I have an idea, and I just so it was like, I want out of the garage, and it was like, I'm going to be out tomorrow, and then a space was presented that had a walk-in cooler just by happenstance. And then it was like, okay, this is really something that we can't, we'd be silly to not jump at.
Yeah. Again, how did the community help you do that? What kind of support, what did people say to you, or was it negative?
So I think that for us, because how the business has evolved, and because it's not what people are familiar with. So a florist, you think of one thing, and it is that is changing, kind of the idea of what a florist is, or a floral designer, that's definitely growing and evolving, but in smaller towns that's still kind of happening. And so I think there was just a lot of kind of apprehension about like, what exactly is this, and how, who do you serve, and when, kind of what's going on. And so I think that initially there was just some kind of hesitancy about what's going on, why can't we just come in and get these things that are just a standard florist thing. Sure. And so I think that I think that presents a really great opportunity, though, to kind of define it yourself. We've been able to define that for ourselves, and we have been able to kind of stay out of that box, because pretty quickly it was like, oh yeah, you're not in that box. So for some people, I think it's like, you're not in the box, I don't get it, I don't want to get it. And then I think for the other people, and the majority of the people, the community, they're excited about that. And so they support us, yeah. So I think a lot of the support too has come from fellow creatives, fellow entrepreneurs. That community has been hugely, hugely supportive. It's been really phenomenal to just have that, just kind of that creative community.
But when
support.
you came into your own with it and really wanting to collaborate with everybody, that is where you really saw traction pick up, though, because other people really,
But initially with collaborating, there were some people that were very
skeptics.
Well, they didn't understand it because we very much adhere to the idea community over competition. Yeah. When business owners and entrepreneurs work together, even with the same exact service, it's beautiful things happen, and there's things that are created, and there are people that are reached that wouldn't have otherwise, you may not have been able to access. And so that is, for some people, that's a foreign concept or a newer concept or kind of a scary concept. And so initially reaching out to collaborate with some local, business owners, there was some kind of pushback and just confusion about, like, why would I do this? Are you just trying to get free stuff from me? And, kind of things like that. But then those who did get it, it just began to create this beautiful synergy throughout. And I think that's grown and allowed everyone to kind of just cultivate something really special.
Yeah. It sounds like when you mentioned that the last year is when you really just like embraced where your strengths lie. That's when you decided to leave your full-time job to come on board to Deliciously Ordinary full-time, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, when you fully embrace your strengths and not let anybody else tell you that those strengths are weaknesses, and you fully embrace them yourselves, obviously your business grew by leaps and bounds, and to the point where you had to onboard your husband. So let's talk about that for a minute and making that decision.
Onboard their husband.
Yes, it feels really amazing.
So I love that happened when you made that decision to stop listening to any of the naysayers, because you very obviously have found your target audience, or the target audience have found you through those collaborative efforts. So I want to talk about when that decision was made and when you brought on Tim and how that played out.
Well, that had been the plan originally when we stopped working together 6 years ago. And so, but how could we get to that?
Yeah.
Well, and we just knew we wanted to work together in one capacity or another. We met that way. We like working together. We work well together. So we knew that was the long-term goal. We just had no idea at all what that would look like then. We didn't even know if that would be Deliciously Ordinary specific. Yeah. It was such a foreign. It was just like, we want to be together.
Well, it continued to where, she was collaborating and doing things kind of where it was hard to see kind of what the outcome would be from that, where we're a 95-degree and we're on a degree day and we're on a corner in Carbondale with a few buckets of flowers trying to,
way back then we're like, we don't know what this is.
Or these things where we show up and we're putting the time and money into all of these things, and how is that going to come back to us? And over time it was, because you were persistent about meeting with these people.
But we still even a year ago, we did not, our timeline was not 1 year.
No, it was not. But COVID was, I think, the big catalyst for everything. I loved social work, have been in the field for a long time, but there was stresses where I was working out of the home day in and day out, doing therapy with families, and
crisis calls from our room.
And it was taxing over time. And we got to a point where there was a few things that just kind of fell into place for us. Yeah. And it was just one of those moments where it was,
are we doing this?
This is the time. And we're seeing it across all communities. People are getting out there trying new things, and
well, and I think, through that, it kind of, we were able to kind of pause and see, okay, you need a change. We know that we want to work together at some point. I was looking at hiring somebody full-time anyways because I was just so busy. And we just, I think, kind of decided, even if this isn't even if this isn't forever, right now we're going to try it. We're going to see, because some things kind of just back to back happened really quickly.
From last year all got canceled, so then they all got stuck
bunched
together,
up.
starting in May, and this was April. We decided.
Yeah, we decided in April.
Okay, well, I need to be on. We need to do this now.
Boot camp.
Yeah.
And so we jumped. I think my first week we had several weddings.
Well, May we had 10 weddings.
10
so he
weddings
started
in
like
May.
the week before. He started like the last week in April, and then we just like dove in with weddings, and here we are.
Hit the ground running, and that's I think one of the things too. Once those first couple weeks of seeing, kind of being there to see the process and then the outcomes and all these things, it was kind of like, okay, yes, this is where we're supposed to be at this time.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Wow. That's
it was
so
it was
great.
a gut thing.
It was a gut thing.
Yep.
Which is, again, he's the thing first.
Counterintuitive to
So,
me,
yeah, but it was like he went with his gut on this one too.
Sure.
It's a good trust there. Hello, this is Allison and Russ, and thank you for joining us on Small Town Big Business. We want to take a moment and thank our sponsors for making our podcast possible. We want to thank Fowler Heating and Cooling, the Arcadia Wealth Group, Black Diamond Harley Davidson and RV, the Watermark Auto Group Foundation, Swinford Media Group, and of course, Union Street Arts.
You can join the Small Town Big Business community by subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen. Spotify, Google Podcast, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Podbean, Apple, and YouTube.
If you want to know more about Small Town Big Business or the Ethos Project at the Citadel Building in downtown Marion, Illinois, just contact me at russell@watermarkethos.org.
Thanks again for being with us today. Now, back to our show. Let's talk about being a business and being a very unique business in small towns, and which you are in a small town and it's next door, so to speak, to Marion, where we are right now. But you cover a big swath of Southern Illinois with your service area. So let's talk about that and how this maybe would look differently if you were in a really big urban area, and really what are those things that you really like here that maybe that you just wouldn't be able to get in that metropolitan space?
So one thing for sure would be like the cost of our space is significantly lower than it would be in a city. So the cost of that in particular is something, my dad had sent me an article from my hometown of a storefront that was this teeny tiny little storefront that I think was like $5,000 a month, and that's something that would be very, very, I am confident we could make it work, but would look a lot differently. And also, because we talked a little bit about this, is the pace of things in a smaller area. I think that there's a bigger sense of urgency when you get into, cities and metropolitan areas. And we really enjoy the pace of Southern Illinois. And that is something that has grown over time, because when I first moved here, I did not maybe have that appreciation. And then over time, I've just grown to really love the ability to just move kind of at the pace that we enjoy and at the pace that it seems the kind of overall community is moving at. That's just a little bit slower, a little bit more grace for others moving slowly kind of through things, and which with a business that is still evolving and is still growing and is still kind of taking shape, it's allowed for that. And I think that when you're in a bigger city and it's more saturated with people doing what you're doing, there's this pressure to do more, do it faster, do it better. And that's something that, again, I believe that people in cities can resist that and can do it slowly and at their own pace and all of that. But I think that that's a huge benefit to running a small business in a small town.
Yeah. And then what are the challenges and obstacles of having a small business in a small town? If you're going to tell somebody who wants to chase their dreams and they're thinking about here, Southern Illinois, Marion, Illinois, Carterville, what would you say to them? You need to understand this, or you need to look out for this.
I think, that there is going to be what I kind of touched on before, is there's going to be some hesitancy about things that maybe are done differently or done in, something that's new or different or out of the box. So, being prepared for some of that.
Persistence for that buy-in.
Yeah, depending on what it is,
Right. Yeah. For us, it was,
because that can be a benefit
you were
too.
Posting every single day, different, venues or walkthroughs or florals or events or different things, and that social media aspect is paid off.
Yeah.
Especially in this area where you can, we've fallen in love with the Shawnee National Forest, and so a lot of the things that she'll do just for some of the photo shoots, we go out there and highlight different areas, and really trying to, even just through that, bring people in to see what the beauty in this area is.
But I guess, another one is, marketing is going to probably look a little bit different. I mean, some people aren't as present on social media in smaller towns, I would say. And so kind of figuring out, what is marketing going to look like for me is going to be dependent on the industry. But I think in the last year, though, there's been a lot of momentum in Southern Illinois where I think it's become, more accessible to more people. Yeah, I think, what are some other barriers to?
Sometimes.
Well, also, I guess if you're not from here, that is another thing that people maybe are gonna they're gonna maybe just be cautiously optimistic. Like, let's wait, let's see. Can we, who are these?
Small towns have done things kind of the same way for so long that something new that might shake it up a little bit.
Like, who are, what are their intentions? Who are these people? What are they trying to do? But I think, I think that's okay. It kind of makes you work for it, it kind of, and then you kind of have to have skin in the game. I feel like for a while I didn't really I saw that as a barrier, but now it's it's kind of good. It's kind of, people are being really protective of what they know and love. And I think that's okay, I'm up for the challenge.
But Tim, you mentioned the Shawnee National Forest, and I don't want to skip over the venues that we have in this region.
Yeah.
What do they add to your business?
Oh yeah. There are so many beautiful venues,
and they just keep popping up.
They do, yeah. And there's been, we work closely with a lot of the venue owners, and they're all just so really, that's been a really beneficial way for us to also, have a referral source with venues, and there's a lot of really beautiful venues, and again, they're popping up, and they're also Carbondale's kind of like the hub. Marion, Carbondale are the two, kind of bigger towns, but some of these smaller towns are having these really beautiful venues that are just, either just popping up or maybe have new owners or are having, some really exciting things happening that are bringing in, clients from out of the area as well. So I have had, just recently, we've had several weddings where they had no ties to the area. So the venues are actually, bringing people in that wouldn't have otherwise necessarily visited. And then all of their guests are visiting as well. Yeah. And that's a really, really neat thing to see people, and then hearing kind of what they're saying about, we had no idea. And, we'll kind of share some of the things that, you should definitely check this out. You should definitely check that out. And they just really, it's neat to see that kind of starting to happen.
The venues are developing a full weekend or week experience now for these families. Yeah.
And a good variety too. I mean, we have lake venues, we have the country farm venues, we've got the wineries, we've got the forest venues, rock formations.
Yes.
Pretty spectacular. The variety. From river to river, really cool.
Yeah.
So, Lindsay, you talked about this momentum and the synergy that is around all of the collaborative efforts that you've been a part of, and you're seeing it around and in the different communities. Can you talk a little bit more about that and why somebody would want to be part of that? Because I see it too, and it's really exciting.
Yeah. So in the last year, there's just been a huge forward movement with, I think, collaborative efforts. I think that there's a lot of factors that have kind of contributed to this, and I think I think social media is a part of it. I think a lot more people are on social media, and they're seeing what is available and who else is doing it and how, and they want to be part of it. And so I think, what we're seeing, what's so exciting is that small businesses are collaborating and cross-promoting, and everyone's kind of reaching everyone's audience, and there's just this synergy that is bringing small business to the forefront, creative ventures to the forefront, activities locally to the forefront, and it's just really moving Southern Illinois forward in this beautiful way where anyone who maybe didn't know or hadn't realized, there is so much going on here, and it's exciting to be a part of it. It's exciting to be a part of that growth and that positive community effort, and it's really neat to be a part of it, to see it, to be witness to it, and to know that there's a lot more coming. The murals on the square, that appreciation for art and the community, the artists that are have submitted them for the competition, and then to watch the community members that are all contributing to painting them, and just
pictures next to them.
And then it's bringing in, then it's bringing in people to want to get photos there. So it's along the way, there's several opportunities for community involvement. So using the murals as an example, there's, the initial, seeing this is happening and that excitement of, oh my gosh, our community is prioritizing art, and that's really cool. And then there's the second layer where then artists are applying, and so then that's bringing that in, and then there's bringing the community in to then paint them, and then people coming from all over to take that photo, and then that's spreading, and so there's just this ripple effect happening that's so beautiful to see.
There's a lot of momentum here, and I mentioned earlier the Chamber of Commerce having a lot of new members who have no ties to Marion currently. They're from surrounding communities, but they want to be part of what's happening in Marion because the momentum.
Well, and all around Southern Illinois, because I think, you then have people realizing the benefits of having access to, Rendleman orchards that's, could previously have seemed maybe really far away, but it's, then you kind of realize, oh my gosh, Southern Illinois really is really big and really accessible and has a lot going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So if you were to bring this back to either your former self or somebody that was just starting out, whichever avatar you want to pick. Sometimes it's easier to talk to your former self. Sometimes it's easier to talk to somebody else. But somebody that's just starting out and wants to get started in a small town, in the business, in entrepreneurship, what advice would you give them as seasoned business owners?
So there are a lot of resources specifically local to Southern Illinois. The Small Business Incubator is a huge asset to our region. And also, I think, I would not give myself any advice because I'm all about, everything that's happened has brought me right here. But if I was talking to somebody else, also, touching base with somebody who can kind of help with the initial structuring of and kind of the tax stuff that, because depending on what you do, you might not know that stuff. We didn't have a background in business. And so being able to speak with professionals who can give you that, that structure and that foundation of, okay, I know that that's taken care of. And I think that's something that is really beneficial. We have a great accountant who helped us with a lot of the stuff that it can just feel so daunting as a small business owner. And so I think that's something that's really beneficial for, entrepreneurs, small businesses, to be sure that those are kind of the first things that you tackle. And then I hate to say and then beyond that, just trust yourself, but having a really, strong trust in yourself and your intuition and your gut, because everyone, it's only, what works for one person isn't going to work for somebody else. And the way that I do things is so counterintuitive to so many people, but it's proven to be successful. And if I would have listened to people that said, you should do this, you shouldn't, or you can't, or you can, or however, we wouldn't be sitting here. And so I think having that trust in your yourself is super important.
Mine would be, I guess, having that positive nature of somebody else to kind of give you that, because the hesitancy is strong in when it's going to be then for your whole family and it's your everything, and when you don't know that lifestyle, that life, it is a challenge. So, but to tell yourself that you can do it, you can move through it, and find your footing along the way. And I think that's what you're going to make mistakes. Things are going to come up, and that's okay. But figuring out how to move through them.
And like leaning on the, if you have a community of other entrepreneurs or small business owners, I mean, we have such a strong support from our friends in that community that help you keep that faith in yourself, because even though they may be doing it a lot differently and it looks totally, their process and their systems are totally different, just like having that shared vulnerability, that shared, fear has such a negative connotation, but there's so much fear involved. You have to, there is fear, and you have to be able to be aware of that and then move through that. And I think leaning on those that kind of understand that is super, super important, because it can be really lonely being a small business owner, being an entrepreneur, anywhere. And so being able to lean on others in those kind of similar situations is super important.
Awesome. Anything more that we should add?
I don't know. I got nothing.
Yeah.
Lindsay, you're definitely the fastest talker we have ever had on this
So sorry.
No, not at all.
podcast interview.
Not at all.
It is.
It's exciting.
We covered a lot of ground at lightning speed, and it's, I think, primarily from the speed of your lips, which is fantastic. I think it's great.
No, I think that's awesome.
It shows you're not from Southern Illinois, maybe. I don't know.
I like the slow pace as I just chip through it. Oh my
Call
god.
every word you said. I'm from here. Yeah. That's so cool. We are so happy that you guys joined us on Small Town Big Business.
Thank
Really
you.
cool.
Yeah.
Lindsay and Tim Stockhecke from Deliciously Ordinary. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
I look forward to watching you guys and the growth and the nimbleness that you do and pivoting. I'm so excited to look forward to seeing what happens and what's in store for you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
And this was excellent. Thank you so much.